All right, let's see if we can't catch us a couple fish on the untamed tackle. Juggernaut football jig. Big smallie. That's a good sized smallie right there. On the Juggernaut jig, football jig. This football jig is something you don't really hear a lot of guys talk about when fishing for smallmouth, but I fish the Great Lakes, and honestly, I catch a lot of largemouth on this too, because in the summertime, that August, late July, depending on how the year, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes later, but they'll get schooled up and you'll see 20, 30, 40 fish in a school, and they get tough to catch in August because a lot of people have been fishing for them, pressure, you know, whatever. And this football jig is something different. Not a lot of guys are throwing tubes, a lot of guys are throwing drop shots. The new minnow craze is a big thing, and I think this football jig from Untamed Tackle has got me a lot of bites that maybe I wouldn't have got. It's got a super sharp hook on it too because I just got it stuck in my hand. But I really like the 1/2 ounce and the 3/4, because usually I got two setups. Usually I'm throwing it on 12-pound test minimum. I wouldn't go any lighter than 12-pound test, but I'm throwing it in deep breaks where fish are schooling up. This ain't really something I'm using around bait. I'm not trying to find bait and catch fish on bait with this. I'm trying to find structure. This is the one jig that I'll use with my forward-facing sonar. So like the Untamed Tackle breacher jig and the Ace jig, those are great jigs for flipping, swimming. This is a jig you want constant contact with the bottom, so you don't want to hop this. And when you're using your forward-facing sonar, you're really just looking for structure. You're not looking for fish, and you're not really trying to see your bait. You're not really going to see them eat your bait because you want this touching the bottom at all times, and you're kind of just dragging it slowly along the bottom, and they'll school up on these breaks of rock, channels. The shipping channel I fish a lot, and you throw it up there on that break, use your forward-facing sonar, get lined up, throw it up on top, and just drag that right off that break, right down that break, and that's how I've been catching a lot of my fish. And just the other day I got ran out by the storms, but I kind of got my day cut short, but I caught a bunch on smallmouth on a hump out there. So my two setups are bait caster, and you really don't want a fast reel. I have a 6:2 to 1 on this. You want to make sure, and the slow gear ratio helps you stay in contact with the bottom, because you don't realize how much line you pick up with a fast gear ratio sometimes reel. So I like to use a slow gear ratio. That way I can just creep this along the bottom. You're dragging it, you're just slowly bringing it across the bottom. For me, I'm imitating a goby, so on the Great Lakes. So depending on what your forage, you know, maybe you're imitating a crawfish. That's why I'm using this straight tail darter style trailer. So I'm using this little darter style trailer because I'm imitating gobies. Maybe if you're imitating crawfish or something like that, you might want to go to like a Zoom Speed Crawl trailer. I've used those before, something like that. But I'm using a bait caster, slow gear ratio, 6.6, 6.2, 6.4 to 1, something like that. And this is a medium heavy. This is a Dobbins rod, Champion, but it's a good rod. I don't like a big heavy flipping stick for this. I like to throw a big heavy flipping stick for my tubes, but this has a big hook in it, and I don't have a problem getting hookups with this. I like a 7-foot, just a 7-foot medium heavy casting rod. The setup goes, I'm throwing it on a spinning rod. Usually I'm throwing the spinning rod in the river. I fish a lot of rivers. Current situations for smallmouth, I like dragging this jig in the river. And drag, you can adjust your drag a little bit better. I don't know, I like a spinning rod when I'm dragging this in a river. You want all the advantages on your side when you're fighting a big smallmouth in a current situation, because it's tough sometimes when you get those big ones on and they get in that current. You know, I fish Detroit River a lot, and it's got a super fast current, and they'll get in that current and put up a good fight. But same thing, half ounce usually. When I'm throwing a spinning rod, 12-pound test, no lighter than 12-pound test ever do I throw with this. And I'm just throwing, you know, braid, 15-pound braid to a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. And as far as how I modify it, there's a couple ways I actually modify it. So normally I leave the weed guard on. The only thing I'm gonna do with the weed guard, if I can find my scissors, the only thing I'm gonna do with the weed guard is I like to cut it straight across, so with the hook. So I go just above the hook, and I like to cut it like that. So you still got plenty of weed guard there, but I like to just cut it straight across, just like that. And I don't know, I feel like it helps me better with hookups. I don't know if it does or not. The only other thing I do to this jig is with the skirt. So there's times you might want to leave the skirt long. If the water's muddy, depending on your situation, you want a bigger profile bait, you're gonna just leave the skirt alone. But sometimes I'll usually fish it two ways. I'll have a longer skirt and I'll have a shorter skirt and see which one I'm catching fish on. But the only thing I do is I leave it long here in the middle. So I come in at an angle this way, and I come in, might as well go up this way. A little bit easier. So I cut it at an angle, leave it long in the middle. It just gives you different layers, different lengths of skirt material, and these kind of flare out a little bit, and just kind of gives you a different profile. That's the way I like to trim my jigs. The other way, this one doesn't have a skirt on it. The other way I like to trim them, if I'm fishing a river, you'll need a pair of side cutters, and I take the weed guard right off with your side cutters. And normally I don't have a lighter with me because the boat got soaked yesterday and my lighter's soaking wet and won't work. But so what I do is I take my lighter very carefully, heat this up, this little extra, and then just smash it down with your pliers, and it'll give you a nice smooth transition right there. And I fish it that way without a weed guard. That's normally in the river situation. I'm fishing around rocks, I'm dragging around rocks, there's no grass where I'm fishing this, nothing like that. And I want every advantage on my side to try to hook up with them big smallmouth, so I'll take that off. But usually, I would say on the lake, I usually, if I'm fishing breaks or something on the lake, I'm usually always leaving the weed guard on for the most part. And because there is times I'll fish around grass, or it does help with not getting it snagged up. But river situation, I'm always taking that weed guard off and I'm dragging it without that. You can drag it like this without the skirt. The nice thing about this jig is, I don't know how well you can see that keeper, but it has a quad keeper on it. So it has 2 barbs on the top, 2 barbs on the side, and that helps tremendously when you got bait fish, when you got gobies. They're always pecking at your trailer, they're always pulling it up when you're dragging it. If you got structure, you know, I slide this through rocks. A lot of times rocks will hit your bait, slide it up your hook, and it just messes up your whole cast. And if you're dragging and your bait's sticking up off your back of your hook, off back of your bait, it does you no good. Your whole cast is pretty much wasted. So that's one pretty cool feature about this jig. So guys, check out these football jigs over at untamedtackle.com. You can follow along with Untamed Tackle on social media. They have a YouTube channel, they have Facebook, Instagram, As you see in the video, you know, I got the utmost confidence in these jigs. They catch fish. If the situation calls for it, I have one of these tied on and on my front deck at all times, you know. So I don't just get on here and ramble about baits just to make content. These are baits that I use, I have confidence in, and I truly believe help me catch more fish. So check them out. I'll see you on the next one.